Is that connected to video source? What are we waiting on here? What's it doing now? Okay, here we go. And go live. Here we go.
Sweet.
Be live in just a second. It's also, yeah, if you, we'll watch it on Facebook, right? Are you on Facebook?
Yeah.
Okay. It's on YouTube too, but we'll pay. It's on, go to Manlyhood. Yeah. It'll be on YouTube too. But. All right, guys. It looks like we are live. All right.
Kind of scary.
It is kind of scary.
It's been, almost 2 years.
Has it been that? It has been a while since we have done Fight Club.
Yes, it's been a long time.
Yeah, we had some stuff going on, and then needed a little break. And then when we tried to get stuff going on to do Fight Club again, I just honestly struggled to make it happen. There was a lot of stuff going on. So
You and I are the only two survivors.
yeah, I think we'll get some of the old crew back again. But yeah, we're the OG, so the original gangsters.
Yeah.
So
Cover here. So
yeah,
I'm excited to see what's going on.
yeah. So let's introduce ourselves. You guys that are watching know me. I'm Josh Hatcher. I'm the Manlyhood guy, and over here we've got Dan Karish. Introduce yourself, Dan.
Dan Karish, I'm the old guy of the bunch. I'm 71, been around, done a lot of things. Just enjoy the heck out of doing stuff like this.
Awesome.
I'm Dallas Finland. I'm just a chill guy.
You are a chill guy.
That's about it.
All right. Yeah, my name's Caleb Doherty. I'm 20, in college right now, about to graduate next year. Figuring out life as it comes along, figuring out how to be better,
That's exciting.
try.
Awesome. So we've got a boomer, an Xer, and 2 Gen Zers. We don't have any millennials today. Sometimes we get a millennial or two in here, but no millennials today. So
What's
No.
millennial consist of?
That's the next one after me.
no, that's the one after me. I'm an Xer. So
I'm an Xer, so I'm a boomer.
so you're a boomer. I'm an Xer. So millennials are the people that are born, like they would have been like teenagers when the turn of the century happened.
Oh, okay. That would have been Jamie, but don't ever call him on.
Right. Well, there's
Fighting words.
a huge difference between millennials raised by Xers and millennials raised by boomers.
This is true.
So, so yeah, there's a big difference, and you get, and I think geography makes a big difference sometimes of where they grew up, but yeah. So,
Cramp time.
so what Fight Club is, I mean, if you've ever seen the movie Fight Club,
You don't talk about it.
you're not supposed to talk about it, but we do talk about it, because we break the rules. But if you ever seen the movie Fight Club, have you guys ever seen that movie? Yeah. Have you ever seen it?
I think I've seen a little bit of it.
Yeah. This is nothing like that. So,
You know what Fight Club's like? Yeah.
nothing at all like that.
Yeah, not like that.
But the goal is we're going to talk about what's happening in the world and how it relates to men, and we might have some differing perspectives,
Right.
and we might disagree, and we might argue and hash things out a little bit. I don't think we're probably going to argue a whole lot. I think generally our crew, whoever we get, even when we have something we don't agree on, I think we generally tend to find a resolution, or find some common ground, or find how to say, oh, that's an interesting perspective. I kind of can see what you're saying. And I think honestly, that's how people ought to fight.
Yeah, I mean, when we were on it before, we get different perspectives, and sometimes we'd have to agree to disagree, and that's fine. That's great. At least we're talking.
Which I think actually kind of brings us to our first topic.
Yeah.
We're looking
How
at,
do we find unity?
yeah, because we're looking at, I was on social media today, and like, I have friends who are from across the political spectrum, like pretty wide. I've got friends who worship at the altar of Donald Trump. Like worship, like, I mean, like if they could literally light incense and pray to him, they would. and I have friends who, uh, would just as soon cut his head off and drink his blood. So, you know, it's the absolute spectrum that you could possibly have, and 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 everything in between. And everybody seems to be up in arms right now, and they just want to argue with each other.
Everybody's losing their stuff. They're watching all the different networks. My network of choice happens to be Fox, but I watch all the different networks because I want to find out what their take is.
Right.
Okay. And man, some of the stuff that is going on. It's one of the reasons I intensely dislike a two-party system. You're either or. I really do believe we need a 3 or 4-party system. I really do believe that.
The only problem with that, though, is it's hard to get a majority with that.
They don't have a majority now, hardly.
Yeah, that is.
Early.
That does make it a challenge.
It does. And what does our country thrive on? No, our country thrives on challenges. Mm-hmm. I mean, just look at what's going on with Elon right now. It's a challenge, and we thrive on it. It's how we get where we are, I guess.
How you overcome too. You challenge, and then you could just overcome that challenge.
But it was kind of neat to watch RFK Jr. meld himself into the Republican Party.
Him, Tulsi Gabbard, even Elon is a perfect example, because Elon was, you see also with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, Rogan and who's the Facebook Meta.
Zuckerberg right now. Well, even the Amazon guy, Bezos.
Yeah, Bezos is there.
All of these guys right now are, what they're acknowledging is, okay, what we've been doing isn't working. How can we work together?
Yeah, to make it better.
And that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything that the current administration is doing or says. It says, what we've been doing is getting crazy. Let's figure something out. Now, I mean, I think that goes to different extremes. Like, I think Elon is saying, I'm all for Trump now, right? RFK is saying, Trump is giving me a platform to be able to do what I need to do. So I'm going to support this because this is what I believe needs to happen for America. And he's got the opportunity to do it.
I think Trump's got it. I think he's got that. He's not political. He wants to surround himself with experts in their fields. And I think that's his key this time.
I think the advantage is to be able to say, okay, how can we solve this by putting somebody in place that's not government? Yeah. I think government, maybe I'm an anarchist, but I think government's part of the problem.
Well, you look at just about every single one of his choices, they're not people who would normally be there. I mean, look at Hegseth. Hegseth's a war fighter.
Yeah.
And he came from Fox, but Pete's kind of guy who's going to surround himself. Pam Bondi, same thing.
Yeah.
Christy Nolan.
Kash Patel. Yeah. These guys. Now, again, looking at it from the perspective of my liberal friends, I can see why this could be a very scary time for them.
Yeah, there's no politicians in this.
But even though, if you are someone who believes in your heart of hearts that the government, so like my one friend today was talking, and he says the government is us. Like, he still believes we are the government, we the people. He believes that that's what they're supposed to be. He believes in the ideal, right? And the ideal is that the government represents us, and that we put the people in office, and they answer to us, and they do what we tell them to do.
I'm listening. I'm letting you go ahead.
I'm just saying that's what he believes.
No.
And so when we pay taxes, it's our money.
That's what we should all believe. And that's the thing, is we have given that over to the people that we elect, and we believe in our heart of hearts that, hey, they've got our best interests in mind. Very few of those people are out there.
Yeah.
And this is where one of the things I was talking that goes in with this is I think we need to kind of take back that thought process where, hey, we're always online, and okay, fine, talk to your representative, talk to your senator, just send the thing to the president. Hell, last time that Trump was up, I invited him out to the house to have a cup of coffee. Over there, we got to him or not, I don't know.
But you know what? There's a guy in town that's a good friend of mine who's, I don't know if you guys know Andy Erickson, but he lost his son. His son died. His son had an accident and passed away, little boy. And the president sent him and his wife a letter and saying, "I'm so sorry to hear about your loss." Whether it was him or whether it was somebody in his office that just signed it for him, I don't know, but
still means
it meant something. And that, that was a meaningful gesture. That was from his last, presidency, last office, but that was a meaningful gesture,
I send stuff to Marty Cowser. I've sent stuff to Glenn Thompson.
Well, I tell you what, Marty Cowser, I think, needs to run for president, because if there's one person, and it's not even because of him. I mean, he's great. It's the ladies in his office. You want to get something done?
Yep.
So Marty Cowser those are listening if you're not from the area. He's our local state representative. So he's a guy from like our local area. He's the guy that's in charge of our district, which is the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. I mean, like, I grew up in the same town that he did. I mean, this is middle of nowhere.
Turtle Point.
Yeah. This is, Turtle Point, population 10, and he's the representative for this tiny little district. And
he does a fantastic job.
And the secretaries in his office, if you need something done, and it involves government, they know how to cut through the red tape, because there is so much bureaucratic nonsense, and when you need an answer, nobody can get it to you. I'm telling you. Listen, this past summer, I had a great job. It was awesome, and I got laid off, and it's no fault of anybody's. It's just the way. Honestly, what I blame, again, government and all of the restrictive taxes is really what it led down to. The taxes just ended up being too much for my employer, and he's just, I can't do this right now. It just killed him. And I think that probably the taxes affecting our clients are probably part of that too. It is what it is. Got laid off, navigating the state unemployment system for a little bit while I got on my feet. I'm telling you what, it was a nightmare because it was governed by AI. So I'm answering questions that an AI is trying to interpret. And it was clear that the questions were written by an AI. I work with AI every day. I know how this works. I use it for marketing. I write this. I use it to write. I know what I'm looking at. These questions weren't written by a human, and I'm sending it in, and I know that an AI is reading it and then filing it. And I kept getting things kicked back, and that meant I would go 2 weeks without pay until somebody looked at it. And so a month goes by, no check. And so you know what? I called that office. They took care of business. They got me in touch with the right person who was able to take care of business, who got me in touch with the right person, because they know what they're doing. Yeah. Those ladies need to be put them in charge of Doge.
They helped me out on state VA benefits.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah. They know their stuff. They really do.
We need people like that in government who actually care about the people they represent. Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't necessarily our topic. So our topic, though, is how do we get along? Because, I have neighbors who might have had I don't put any political signs in my yard for a good reason, but I have neighbors who might put a sign in their yard. I don't think they do anymore, but maybe they put a sign in their yard for a different candidate, right? Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, we're going to think very differently. And they might post something on Facebook that I'm like, what's wrong with you? How do I get along with that person?
Listen. Listen to what they got to say. Take the preconceptions out of your own mind.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing. Sit down and listen. See what they have to say. Then there's going to be some people that are going to shut you right off. They're not going to listen to anything you have to say at all. Mm-hmm. But listen to them. See what most people just want somebody to listen to what's going on. Okay, fine. Listen to what they got to say, and then hey, you got a point here, you got a point there. Here's what I think. And don't push your point out. Don't try to push it on somebody else. Just put it out there and let them draw their own conclusions. I don't know.
I think that's probably the wisest thing I've heard
Yeah.
all day. I think
Oh, God.
I think no, but it's true. How often do we just try to be right?
Yeah.
That's what's going on right now.
Yeah.
A lot with our politicians is it's polarized.
Yeah.
And
I'm right and that's it, no matter
Yeah,
what.
That's it.
everybody's gotta have an opinion.
Look at Maxine and the rest of the group there. It's just the squad, I guess.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's the same on the right. It's the same on our side.
Uh-huh.
There's a lady today that was. I understand the whole transgender rights thing is a big issue, so she's got to get up there and she's got to be insulting, and she wants to use a word that's a slur to insult the other side, and they called her out on it, and they said, that word is insulting to that community, and then she repeated it 4 times to them, and it's like
that she just didn't care.
And okay, I get what they're like. I don't agree with it, but do you need to be insulting?
First of all, I don't think it should have been politicized in the first place. It has no place in politics.
Exactly.
The way that civil rights was written and everything like that, I think they were covered. But it has no place in being in government. Government, it's not something we need to adjudicate.
And if it comes down to it, and if we have to have the discussion, I think we can have it respectfully.
Yeah.
You don't have to go around being a jerk. Like, listen, I disagree with what you're doing. I don't agree with what you're saying. You don't have to be like, you're blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's not going to win you any arguments. That's just going to make you look like a jerk.
On either side.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
okay, fine.
And it's like I can relate to that because I work in a factory, and that's how they try to run stuff in the factory. Is they try to push things like, and they don't want to sit there and listen to you, like you said, listen. They don't want to listen to like, why did this happen? They just want to know, or you did wrong, really.
Yeah, who's at fault?
Yeah, you did wrong. So like, what are you gonna do? And so they didn't want to listen about it. If they would have sat down and been like, all right, what's wrong with this? Where did we go wrong here? Not just you. Where did we go wrong? Because maybe it's the person that was training, So the person that's trying to train you was wrong. Now I'm wrong. So it's like, where did we all go wrong? Not just you.
Yeah, I think it's like a big part of like reframing the cycle. Because something goes wrong, the first instinct is, who is to blame? Who can we yell at about this? Who is going to catch these slurs, terrible words, comments, whatever? And really, if you're working at a factory and something catches on fire and the factory blows up, I think the main priority should be the factory's blown up. We need to fix it. We need to get workers back hired, and we need to start producing this material or whatever
I work
it
in
is.
particle board. I know exactly what you're
Right.
talking about.
And then the other side of it, then when it's all fixed, okay,
Then-
now we can deal with if somebody has to pay for it.
Right.
I think that they let it go too far into stuff that belongs in a parent's bailiwick, things like this, and telling kids in school, well, you can tell us whatever you want to, and it won't go back to your parents. Wrong answer. Parents are the number one, not the teachers, not counselors, everybody else. Parents are the beginning and the end of the law for that child.
Well, and that's basically a philosophy that is the difference that's out there. Is there's a difference in philosophy of, is the child the community's child, or is the child the parent's child? You know what I mean? Who does the child belong to? Right. Right. And then when the child's an adult, that child is a sovereign being who has their own choices that they make.
At 18 years old, or 21, whichever.
Yeah.
That's when you go out and you make your own choices. You're making your own money. You're making your own stuff. You live with your choices. Not 6 years old.
Right. Right. Right.
That, this is cool. Everybody else is doing it. So
And at the same time, there's a certain degree of, as a society, we also have certain protections in place that cover when the parents aren't doing their job. Meaning, this parent is neglecting or abusing this child, we step in to protect that
Yeah,
child.
but this isn't.
Some people believe that is, though. I'm not saying they're right, but some people believe that is. Some people say this child isn't given the freedom to express themselves, right? This is a little boy who wants to wear a dress, and this parent isn't letting him do that. I'm only playing devil's advocate because I don't believe this way.
That's okay.
But so this mindset out there says, because this parent is a Christian who believes that God made male and female, right? Made two genders. And this little boy believes that he's a little girl. This parent is putting this little boy in harm's way because when he's a teenager, he's going to have suicidal thoughts. And we need to take that child from these parents so that he has the right to make that decision so we can protect him. That's their philosophy. Now, that is wrong. But, however, if this parent was actually abusive, actually harming that child, I believe that these protections are in place for a good reason.
Yeah.
But
I
but
think,
that's what they've gone too far.
yeah, they've overstepped.
Right.
They've overstepped into this whole thing of, well, the abortion issue, same thing, birth control issue. Well, we're not going to tell your parents, but we can help you out here at school. Wrong answer.
Yeah.
That's mom and dad's purvey.
Yeah.
Purview.
Yeah. Purview. Yeah.
But yeah, this is part of us giving over our
Sovereignty.
our duty
Yeah.
to our country or to our children. Teachers are not supposed to be raising our children. Teachers are supposed to be teaching our children. We've given them over to the point of, well, you're raising our children. No, wrong answer. I'm not being paid to raise your child, or stuff like that. And the same thing goes into our politics and stuff like that. We've given over so much to the government, saying, well, they know what's best for us. And I would argue that every day of the week, that they don't always know what's best for us. I think they know what's best for them.
Guys, next on my list of topics, if you guys are up for talking about this. Anybody now, did you guys watch anything regarding the Grammys at all? Do you ever watch the Grammys?
I saw that.
I had.
I know.
I heard the outcry over it.
Yeah,
Then I went and looked.
I generally don't watch the Grammys anymore. When I was a kid, right? Now, as a musician, I mean, you're a musician.
Yeah.
You produce.
Yeah.
Dude, Dallas makes awesome music in his attic. It's awesome. He's got a cool studio. He makes
Just the attic. Okay.
he makes hip hop music. It's awesome. Caleb is a musician. He makes good music. You're not a musician, but you do awesome storytelling that I think ought to be recorded. I think it'd be awesome. Put some acoustic guitar behind it, and it'd make great albums. I'm serious. But anyway, but when I was a kid, the Grammys were like the highlight. Like
Grammys, Oscars, yeah.
And they were classy. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like the ceremonies, the performances. There might have been like subtle, little risque things, but for the most part, it was not about provocation. It was not about offending anybody. It was something that you could watch with the whole family, and everybody would appreciate it. Yeah. Right? You would say, "Oh, this is the best that we have in the arts."
They're being rewarded for what they've put out.
Right. So now something has happened artistically where art has become about provocation and offense. And the more offensive and provocative it is, then the more valued it is. Anyway, so this is what happened. Kanye West, who, by the way, I've always been intrigued by.
Mm-hmm.
One, because musicianship-wise, now I like hip-hop. He's an amazing musician.
Yeah.
When he first came out, started making music, like, right around the 2000s era, like, Jesus Walks was, like, this amazing song that, as a Christian, I thought was, like, okay, he's based on his other stuff, he's obviously not living for Jesus, but this song is really neat. He's paying homage to his mother's faith, really, is what he was doing.
Yeah.
But I'm like, this is really good. And then his other music was maybe not all good, but some of it was kind of positive. It's okay, buddy. Chill out. My dog. She's got a problem. Anyway, it was positive, right? And fairly good. And then you know what? Probably a few years ago, Kanye had this experience with God.
Yeah.
Gave his life to Jesus. Made this amazing album that was very Christian. And then him and his wife split up. Hey, you don't like Kanye, do you?
That's what I was thinking.
Is it Kanye? Come here.
Yeah, it is Kanye.
We're live on the internet. Anyway, you know, he you've got to stop. You've got to stop. So you know, he asked God to help him. He felt like God let him down. Turns away. Starts making pretty filthy stuff. Says that he's going to start a porn production company. Gets together with this gal. And then it all culminates in what happened this weekend. They walk out on the red carpet. He's wearing a t-shirt. She's wearing a fur coat.
Yes.
I don't know what he says to her, but it looks really controlling. Like if you're reading body language, like this was not, because you can see her mouthing the word no. And he looks like he's controlling and telling her what to do. And she turns around and drops the thing. I did not want to watch this video. I was scrolling and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I'm interested in Kanye. And I'm like, no. And I mean, it was blurred out, so I didn't see, but I still saw more than I wanted to see. And so then I read about it because I'm like, nope, scroll away, and I read about it. So that's what happened is she was wearing a transparent dress and everything. I'm like,
completely transparent.
What?
With nothing under it.
What in the world? What in the world?
Yeah, that's not okay to be put on TV.
The thing is they keep moving closer and closer and closer and closer. I mean, you look at the gowns, or lack thereof, and they're getting closer and closer and closer. But you look at all the guys are all dressed in usually formal attire. Yeah. Why are they doing this? Who is personifying womanhood like this? Right. And then they wonder why they get the reputations they get, and the comments they get like this. Why would a grown woman do that?
Is that supposed to be empowering?
I don't think so.
You know, I mean that doesn't look empowering to me. That looks exploitative to me.
I wonder if it's just a lot of times Kathy and I have this discussion. We'll see some new fashions come out or something like that. And it's like these guys must hate women. That's all I can come up with. Is these gown designers and stuff must hate women.
You know, I and don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it. I'm not trying to say it as a prude. Like I think that all women should cover up for my sake. Like I should control myself, right? Like if a woman walks by and I go to the beach and she's hanging out, that's up to me where I put my eyes.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, if a woman walks by and she bends over and her crack's hanging out, that's up to me where I put my eyes. You know? That's up to me. You know, what I think and what I look at. No matter how she's dressed, that's up to me how I react to that. But my concern is, hey Sammy, what are you doing? She's enjoying herself there. Hey, it's okay. Come on, silly dog. That's why Fight Club is fun, because we have goofy dogs.
Yeah.
But you know, like, and when I have the discussion and I tell women to be modest, that's kind of sexist too.
Right.
But my concern is, what you're gonna say something?
I think it's the same thing here.
What are you saying?
So I would personally never comment about how a woman chooses to dress, because in my eyes, the view is very similar. That is whatever she chooses to wear, her own choice. And it comes down to me to react as a man the way I should, respecting women, whether they are dressed modestly or not, but to say, women are a beautiful creation, absolutely, but that is not my woman to worship. That is not my woman to romanticize after or lust after. That is not my own. Once I slap a band on there, then absolutely. That is a whole different ball game. But I think what this whole situation comes down to is how, as they are married, right? Kanye,
I believe they're married. I think they are
married or in some sort of relationship, the choice to parade your wife in what I view as a very grotesque, but not dehumanizing, but
yeah, that is the right word.
dehumanizing. Is that the
Yeah,
right one?
that's the word I
was
would
thinking
use.
of something different, but I mean that still applies. Like the way I view it, to honor your wife, to honor your woman, and all of that sacredness that you're the only one that gets to see all that, that gets to experience that, and to say, hey everybody, here's everything. What is left of your relationship after that? Because anybody can talk to your wife, anybody can have meaningful conversations with her, anyone can go out and get coffee with her or have a meal with her. Not everybody gets to see that and experience that, but now it's all out there.
You've shown it.
It's all there.
There's a lot of creators in the man space that do things like manlyhood, like we're doing out there, who have there's some of them, I won't name their names, but if you follow sites like Manlyhood, you'll see some of these guys, and some of them will parade their women around like that. You know, they'll take pictures of their women in, you know, a bikini, you know, or you know what I mean, and show it. Or there's one guy literally, like, he takes a picture of his wife and him, like it's like a boudoir. I don't know how to say that word.
Boudoir.
Yeah. Take a boudoir shot and then
good.
and then share it, you know. And I'm like, are you like, because he's trying to brag about how manly he is based on how hot his wife is, but he's sharing that, and I'm like, dude, like, that is not, no. Now, don't get me wrong. If I go out with my wife and she's done her makeup up and she's dressed nice and we go out on the town, hey buddy, we go out on the town and you know, like, I notice if somebody notices that my wife is pretty, and it does, you know, like,
that's a nice thing,
you know, like,
yeah.
like people notice that my wife is pretty, and I know, like, yeah, she's going home with me. Like, that's a nice feeling. Do you know what I mean? To a degree, like there's like that. But if I notice that a guy's looking at her and thinking, "Ooh, look at that," that's a different feeling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so why would you want that?
Yeah, because I think even with that situation, like, very end, like, when you see someone going too far than just like appreciating, we'll say appreciate from a distance, like, that's all right. But once it takes that step too far, like in the guy's head, like, that's like a protective thing now. That's to the point to where it's like, I may have to defend, maybe not physically, but my woman, because you know, that is mine. That is something for me to cherish. And it might be like, hey, you know, buddy, you know, calm it down with the eyes, you know, calm it down with the comments or something like that. And
well, I'm just a chill guy, so I
You're just a chill guy.
I wouldn't go to an altercation.
You would if you had to.
Yeah,
you would if you had to. I wouldn't want to mess with you if you were. You're a chill guy, but you could throw down.
Yeah, that is interesting though, because the be flaunting something that is yours that you like would want to yourself, that like it's just kind of ridiculous to put out there for other people to see.
If I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If he in fact is a control freak and he did that to her, what's left of the relationship?
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
Well, and especially if she didn't want to. Like,
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like if she did want to, that's also kind of gross.
Yeah. I would.
But if she didn't want to, that's even worse.
Yeah.
Like, that's just like, that's really sick. You know? and I mean, and I know we're speaking about two real people that are out there that we don't know,
Right.
but I think the reason I'm bringing it up is because how do we relate that to us?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, now we need to then, one, be thinking about where do we put our eyes? How do we view other people? Right? How do we then appropriately protect and honor the people, the women in our lives? You know, like I know, like, I like as a dad, right? Having daughters,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like we go to the beach and or we go to the pool and like I had like people call, you know, like I can't believe you're going to be that strict with what you're with your daughter. Yes, we said no two pieces for a long time. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I think we like, you know, you always lighten up a little bit more on the last daughter. You're like, "Oh, I'm sick of fighting," but we still had some pretty strict rule. Like it was like, okay, that two piece is too much.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You know, like, and then when she was an adult, then it's her choice. But when she was, you know, not an adult, we had some lines that she wasn't allowed to cross. You know, why won't you let me wear a bikini, Dad? Because I'm your dad. That's why.
Yeah.
Because I really don't want to go to prison here.
Yeah.
You know,
You know, and are you being, you know, like how dare you, you know, and I've heard people say, well, you know, that's not your job to protect her virtue. Yes, actually it is.
Mhm.
Yeah.
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 Actually it is. And if you think
I've already told my kids, I said, hey, I said, I'm 71. I don't know how much longer I'm going to live. Right now, a life sentence doesn't mean that much to me. No, and business will be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. I did say that out loud.
it's on the internet now. Everybody
You ever
knows.
seen Next to Kin?
I don't know if I've seen that one. What's that one?
Mm-hmm. Swayze.
Oh, Swayze. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh,
It's a good one.
Is
Pick
it?
it up on Netflix or something.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah, stuff like that just has. I don't think it has any place.
No, I agree with you though. That's if you're putting these boundaries for your kids, you should be able to be there and protect them as a father or even as a mother, because sometimes there's not a father around.
Mhm.
There's single mothers out there, so they have to be almost an authoritative figure.
I wouldn't want to tick off Zoe.
That's right.
You know Dan's wife, Darla, right?
Mhm.
I had ticked her off. I had seen her absolutely ready to kill Dan and I.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that reminds me of my mom, how she would act too. She would be like that, especially to my dad.
Mama Bear.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't
Moms.
tick off Mama Bear.
Moms can be protective. Moms know
Mhm.
what they're doing, and they can protect pretty well. Yeah, you know, and there's also the line of, you know, I mean, I know raising my kids, sometimes I sheltered them too much. You know, sometimes I'm as they looking back now with the filter of regret, you know, like, okay, this is where I sheltered too much, and I probably should have given them a little more space. And there's some places where I'm like, boy, I wish I would have sheltered them more in this area. You know, I wish I would have known this was going on because I would have clamped down on that. You know, so
We still find things out.
my mom is still finding things out. So
We still find things out.
So the way I was raised was my mom would always be like putting the rules. My dad's like, he's gonna live and learn, kind of like you're gonna go out there, you're gonna get beat up, you're gonna get whatever's gonna happen to you is gonna happen to you, and you're gonna learn. My mom's like, oh, don't do this, don't do that, and then she'd be upset when I did. And I was like, would you learn? Like, would you learn from that?
Stick that screwdriver in that light socket.
Yeah,
do that again?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I bet you ain't gonna do that again.
that's not a. I mean, that is part of parenting is letting them learn their lessons. And
sometimes they're hard lessons.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, I've
Yeah.
had plenty.
Sometimes they are. And you hate it. You know, you, at least I do. I hate it when my kid learns a hard lesson, especially if that lesson's bought and paid for by me already.
Right.
I mean, you know,
Right.
Josh knows quite a bit
Yeah.
about my history and stuff like that. I bought and paid for some really hard lessons across my lifetime, and sometimes My boys don't understand that.
Yeah.
They've got to see if it comes out different for them.
Well, it's the
Yeah.
same way, even with your grown kids, and you're like, listen, I've been through this. I'm trying to tell you. I think with your grown kids, it's worse just because with your and you guys will see this someday, right? You'll have kids one of these days, and you'll have this experience. So listen to the old guys now, because you'll get there one of these days. You'll be like, I remember when Dan and Josh told us this, but the day will come, and you'll be like, oh, I get it now. But like, you guys are my kids' age, So now when we tell you stuff, and I treat you guys, literally, you guys are like my kids, so that's just what it is. You're my extra kids. So when I tell you stuff, I know that you're either going to listen to me, or it's going to go through one ear and out the other.
Yeah.
Right? It's up to you whether you take it or not. Right? I get that. But when I tell you something, trust me, in that I know if I'm going to take the time to tell you, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. If Dan tells you, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. It's because we know.
Yeah, we got the scars, got the t-shirts, yeah.
So just letting you know, if we were like, hey man, if you do that, this is the other side of that.
Yeah.
It's because we've been there.
Yeah. And that's where a lot of the time when I was growing up, I didn't listen. Like my dad would tell me, and I didn't listen. And I was like,
who's your dad?
Willie Finland.
Okay, not Dan.
Nope.
Okay.
Nope. My dad wouldn't tell me. Well, he'd be like, okay, so why would you go and do this when I told you exactly what was gonna happen? I was like, well, I wanted to find out for myself. Like, I wanted to know if that was the outcome, and it was most of the time. Most of the time. Sometimes it was different, but it's all on how I went about the situation when it was different. So it wasn't like, oh, now he did the same exact thing. So if I did the same thing he did, it would end up the same. Now if I went to the situation differently, and like, so I was listening, and now I have to interpret it myself on how do I work around what he did wrong and kind of fix that, like do it
Still do
differently.
the same thing, but get out of it okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like the old bull in the fence is like, listen, calf, if you touch that electric fence, you're going to get shocked. And the calf says, what if I go under the fence? What if I go over the fence? What if I run really fast into the fence? And eventually the calf figures out, okay, there's one spot in the fence I made it through.
I just keep trying.
Oh, all right, guys. Here's the next thing. I posted this on my Facebook the other day because I went. So where we live, those of you guys that are watching or listening, and you're like somewhere else in the country, I don't know if you have the same experience, but we're right on the border of Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, marijuana is legal for medical purposes. Across the border in New York State, it's legal for recreational purposes. And where we live, we are right near the Seneca Reservation, the Indian reservation, where they don't have all of the same. Hey, Sammy's licking herself again. Can you imagine?
She just smiled.
The Seneca don't have the same regulations and laws.
Yeah, you get free rolls if you get $20 in gas.
Yeah. So they'll just give you a joint. So, now, I went to the gas station, and as I'm standing there pumping, every car that pulled up opened up their door, and a green cloud comes out, and everybody had been, reefing. And now I'm personally a guy. I'm not anti-medical marijuana. I mean, I tend to not think it's a good idea to smoke recreationally. That's my position. I think it's not smart. That's my position, to smoke recreationally. That's just my preference and my belief on it. I'm not against using it for medical purposes. However, I lean a little bit libertarian, so I also tend to think, look, I also think that I kind of hate the government telling everybody what they should do. But at the same time, why are people driving when they're smoking pot? Have you guys noticed this? Like, is that what they do now?
No, that's not what they do now. It's what they've always done.
True.
So
You're right. You're right there. Yeah.
Why am I just now noticing it? Am I that naive that I never noticed it before?
Well, you were never a stoner, I don't.
Yeah, that's what, as a previous weed intaker,
Aficionado.
consumer, I have partaken in driving and smoking, and long to the amusement park. Got to bring one on the back roads just to get your mind right. Oh, we're gonna have a good time, and now you just sit there and listen to music. And not saying it is a good idea to do that all the time, but some people. So with me, when I smoked weed, I was very functional as a stoner. Like I could smoke, and that's probably because my tolerance was so high. Because I was a very big stoner. I smoked a lot, so I could do anything high that honestly I would function better high than I would sober. Because it was normal for me at that point. I'd work, I'd go home, I'd do everything just smoking, and a lot of people are like that. But when it affects your brain, that's when you shouldn't honestly do those things, and you should use it medically. So that's where I come from, like with a recreational and a medical point of view. Is for me, like, because I found it to be like, oh, I just didn't need it because I was actually using it for the wrong reasons. Like I was using it to just kind of cope with stress and put things back. Oh, put it on the back burner. I don't. I'm just gonna smoke a joint and then worry about it later. The later came. I was like, I'll just smoke another joint.
Right.
So,
Just put it off instead of dealing with it.
yeah,
Right.
and that's why I quit because like I never dealt with the problem. I
Just numb it.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we
Go
all
back.
and we all numb with something.
Right.
So we all we all can numb with something. So I get that. Yeah.
Yeah. I say there was two situations where I've smoked in the past. Just starting off college, everything's new and exciting, and it's all around. And I had absolutely, in my mind and through what I believe, fallen short and had given into that. Um, a friend of mine from college had worked at the same place I did, up road at, should I say the establishment?
No.
Okay, I figured. But we were working at a place, and we were
just in case.
Yeah, just in case, because yeah.
Don't say
Anyways,
that.
yeah, we were stacking wood, and we had ended up smoking while we were doing that, and I ended up having to run this three-way splitter. So hop in the crane, small crane we had, pick up a seasoned log, drop a couple of on it, drop one down, shift it forward, cut it, split it.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would have to get all my splits off and go stack them. Awful. Absolutely awful time. I managed to get through that day and get through without injuring anybody or myself. It was awful, though. My brain was racing the whole time, anxious the whole time. And some people will say, like, oh, there's two different types. You had the wrong type. I think, regardless, my personal beliefs, and now growing away from that, be sober minded. There is no better mindset than a sober one, and being able to think, function clearly. And of course, you have some different experience.
I agree with you there, though.
Mhm.
This is because the thing is like back then I could do those things,
Right.
but they didn't lead me to where I needed to go.
Right.
When I stopped, things progressed a lot better.
Mhm.
Like I was moving actually forward in life instead of being stationary. So I was like seeing a big change on what's happening around me with the people I treat and how I act with them, and just the things that were opening up to me was so much more than when I just sat there and smoked weed and did the same thing every day. Like go to work, smoke weed, come home, smoke weed, and then just repeat. Now doors are opening. I'm doing a lot of new things that I've never done, and I probably would have never done if I didn't do that and let my mind be like, okay, well, this is what you did all the time. Now let's do something different. So it really, I agree with you with being sober minded and actually having a sense of clarity on things. But I also agree with medical purposes that you should be able to be treated with it if you need prescription, if you need it.
They've proven
Yeah.
that, like, for pain relief, for cancer victims, and all kinds of stuff, it is extremely effective for people. Like there's a lot of medicinal uses for it. So I'm not, like I said, I'll never knock that.
Right.
You know, I tend to think that there might be healthier ways to take it than smoking it, just because smoke is bad for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But
exactly.
but
Edibles.
yeah. So I'm like, but all that aside, um, I also know people. I mean, we talked about this before cameras were rolling. I have a family member, won't say any more than that, but a family member who uh, had some psychological issues and was going through a tough time and was vaping, uh, using a vape pen, and it, while was already in a tough psychological situation, it had a psychotic break. You know what I mean? It made it worse. It accentuated it. So, and I know that because there's one, all different kinds of strains of the stuff.
Yeah.
Two, people whose brains can't handle it. So I think it's one of those things where not everybody should use it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the stuff that we're getting now is a whole lot different than the stuff I used to smoke back in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole hell of a lot more powerful.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, it's some pretty rough stuff. I mean, back in the 70s when I started, or I should say late 60s, didn't do anything for me. It made me thirsty and maybe want to go to sleep. So I stopped from it. I just progressed up to other better things, or at the time.
Better?
Well, maybe not so. But but yeah, it has no. It's to me, it's like alcohol. It has no business being in your bloodstream if you're operating a vehicle, or you have the ability to hurt somebody else badly. Fine, you want to do this, go to your own bedroom, your own house, stay there.
Yeah.
Don't be out amongst the world.
Yeah,
I know there's all sorts of people.
Yeah.
That do it, and I think it's wrong.
Yeah, and like Dallas said, you might be the one person who has a really high tolerance that can operate it, but I think that's where you have to until you can't, or until somebody else can't, and so that's why they have the law.
Yeah, I think like a little side note about it is CBD. CBD is a variation of the hemp plant,
right,
which is not a
the
weed
THC.
plant, so no THC. Also, very significant medical benefits, pain relief, focus. It's helped in several different aspects in health benefits. I know I used to work for a company who sold CBD oil, and the testimonies of how it had helped these people were fantastic. It was just amazing hearing the testimonies of how much it helped. So I think if you're kind of taking your health into your own hands and exploring these options, that should absolutely be one that you look at. And it could personally fall down to I don't think it works, or I do think it works. So just an option, just something to think about. I won't push or force anyone to make a decision, but
so I've tried smoking CBD before, and so maybe it's because I was like a big stoner and I smoked a lot of actual weed that when I smoked that, it gave me such a headache. I can't speak on the oils or anything, so like maybe those might actually be really good, would help a lot. But when the flower itself, it would give me headaches and migraines, and I couldn't smoke it. So every time, like, I just didn't like that. And I wouldn't. So people tried, like, oh, why don't you just smoke this? And I'm like, I can't. It's like I can't do that. But I've never tried the oils, so like honestly, that's a good option there.
When I was in high school, I don't know why, my buddy and I would smoke ferns out in the woods, just random ferns, and we just get like copy paper and just like roll them up. We thought it'd be funny. And one time,
you're making me laugh.
One time we rolled them up and we didn't have any copy paper, so we rolled them up in a brown paper bag.
Oh.
I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
You should have.
It was like the blackest, nastiest smoke. It was.
Oh,
What was I? I don't know, man. We weren't that smart.
I have a bunch of stories like that. So
Yeah, I was like,
what this does.
yeah, that's exactly. Yeah, like we weren't getting high from ferns. I mean, we didn't even breathe them into our lungs. We were just like breathing them into our mouth like you would a cigar, And I'm like, what's this? And then this is dumb. What does this taste like? And then it was like, then when we took the whiff of the paper bag, you got a little bit in your lungs because the smoke was so acrid, and we were like dying.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't ever smoke a brown paper bag.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Fern.
You're still alive.
Yeah, I wasn't that bright. I've never smoked pot though.
Just ferns.
Good.
So this is something that I just saw the story, and you guys have heard the myth about somebody, like kids would like flush their pet alligators down a toilet in New York City. So apparently now, and then like the alligator would grow up to be big.
Mm-hmm.
So the New York Post ran a story, and this cracked me up. So they said that the myth is true. So New York might not have those infamous alligators in the sewer, but Florida. Now this is what's funny because
Florida's got everything.
Of course,
Florida's got alligators.
Florida's got alligators. Yeah. So this is why it's funny. But anyway, Florida, of course it does, has the real thing. A work crew in Oviedo, Florida, proved that the New York City myth was a Sunshine State reality after discovering a 5-foot alligator residing in a sludge-filled pipe. Footage of the scaly subterranean tear is currently stirring up a social media sensation. And a spokesperson said that the new underground pipe was spotted Friday during a routine pothole inspection. So they went down there and they found an alligator in the sewer. Yeah.
In New
So
York.
no, it was in Florida. So
you would expect to see something.
I know. So like,
so
like the New Yorkers are all surprised by this. I mean, but I because they want the myth to be true in New York.
Well, Pittsburgh, somebody let a 4-footer go.
It happened in Erie. It happened in Erie too.
This happened in Erie
last summer. They found an alligator in Lake Erie, and then I saw like when the weather started turning cold, everybody's like trying to find the alligator so they could rescue it so it wouldn't freeze to death, and nobody could find it.
Took you to show up this year 15 feet long or something.
Yeah.
Because it ate zebra mussels all winter.
Yeah. Can you imagine? It evolved to handle the cold. I mean, Lake Erie's like freezes over, so I can't imagine that. But they. I mean, sometimes
the dormancy, don't they?
I mean, they've shown gators that like they'll freeze and their nose will stick out.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So sometimes they survive, don't they?
Yeah.
But they're cold-blooded, so.
Same with iguanas. They just fall out of the
Yeah, I've heard that.
I don't know. But can you imagine like when we went down to Florida, we went to Gatorland, and I know it was like in captivity, but like there was a ton of alligators. I got to wrestle one. I mean, it wasn't really wrestling one. I just like straddled one and held it for a minute while they took a picture. The other guy was wrestling one, but like those things are crazy though. Can you imagine just like doing your job in a sewer and you just come across an alligator?
No.
So I won't move down south.
Yeah.
My kids want me to move down south. Everything down south wants to sting you, bite you, kill you, something. I told the kids, I said, I'd have to be down there. I'd have a judge on each hip.
Right.
One of them's going to be shot shells. The other one's going to be 45 long Colts.
The judge is a great pistol.
Yeah.
Because it's what? It shoots 410.
410 shot shells.
Yeah. So the revolver that shoots 410s or
45
long Colts. So and then now the 410, you can actually get a 410 shell for it.
It's self-defense.
Yeah, they're great. My dad had one, and dude, you shoot that thing, and it's like, man, you could knock a hole in somebody. It's the best pistol.
Won't move down south. don't do snakes. No.
Oh, All right, this I thought was particularly relevant. I actually thought of Dan Karish when I saw this
Oh,
story.
no.
And the reason I thought of it is because Dan was a scoutmaster, right? So he like
Okay.
all my best experiences with Dan were we'd go camping with the kids, like Isaiah and Abe would go camping together with Dan. And so I read this story, and then now now Dan's an amputee, and so this is the story. Okay, so this guy, he's 40-year-old Max Armstrong, which is a great name, Max Armstrong.
That's good.
He was camping with his friends in Kiowa, Colorado, in December when he burned his thumb on a skillet while he was cooking pasta. And he didn't think anything of it, but a few days later, it started to swell up, and then his toenails began turning purple. And then after 6 days, they took him to the emergency room, and his eyes started rolling back in his head. They put him in a coma because he got sepsis. They took him out of the coma, and they realized that his feet were completely black, and they had to amputate his feet actually all the way up to his knee, took off both of his legs because of the sepsis.
I went back and read the story.
Uh-huh.
But I do not understand. Is if all it was were they below the knee or above the knee?
I missed that part.
They don't really tell you in the story.
Yeah.
Right? But they're saying, well, he's going to be in a wheelchair the rest of his life. BS.
Right.
Absolute BS. How dare you make that prediction?
Right.
And when I read that, that's exactly where I went with it.
Right.
Was how dare you say something to that guy? You never tell somebody like that. You can't. It's no, you just don't do it. But sepsis is nothing to mess with. Been there, done that. I had a central line, and it went dirty on me. Damn near killed me. Came real close. Hadn't been for Kathy, probably would have. Kathy being my wife.
When was that?
Back just after I found out I had leukemia.
Wow.
It's when I did a autologous bone marrow transplant with activated T cells. Now activated T cells are a big thing. They use them all the time. But back then it was just experimental. Mine held me for maybe 30, 40 days. But yeah, my line went dirty on me. It's a line that they use for access right straight down into near your heart. And mine went dirty on me. Started sweating, got feeling pretty bad. Kathy made me go to the hospital, and yeah, woke up the next morning with who's the doc that's his reputation's crap in Brentwood now.
Oh, I'm not sure. There's a few of those.
Yeah, Bucaro. Yeah, I woke up the next morning in a reverse pressure room with him staring at me. So I was feel to be alive. They got him fast enough and were able to get his life stay alive. But sepsis is nothing to mess with. And he was, from what I can gather, he was in backcountry. So he just kind of wrapped his finger and said, "Oh, we're cool."
Man, but a burn from a skillet on your thumb, and then you lose both of your legs.
I'm wondering if he was diabetic.
Yeah, because that's what.
There's more to the backstory here, and the Post is real good at this stuff.
Yeah, because they love clickbait.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a New York Post story, which they're really good at clickbait.
And
right?
I'd love to know the rest of the story.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe he'll come on the podcast. I should reach out to that guy.
You should.
And interview him. That would actually make a great interview.
It would.
Just like, what happened to you, dude? Let's talk about that. Like, how are you overcoming it? Let's give him a little time to get on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's when I read that, it's like, you know, why are you going back to your life thinking you'd be in a wheelchair the rest of your life? I don't believe that for a minute. I really don't.
Yeah, I wonder if that's what he said, or if that's just something that the journalist said, or
I'm thinking that's artistic license.
Yeah,
is what kind of journalistic license,
yeah,
if you will, because it's just I no, we just had this. We do a monthly support group run by the head PT down at HJ Hines, which I went for my rehab and everything. And it was one of the things we were talking about was there's a guy that's getting ready to become a PKA, below the knee amputee. And so he's still on the point where he's coming to grips with it and all of this. And one of the things that everybody in the place said, don't ever crew, my treatment team down there, sometimes they shudder with some of the ideas I come up with, but they try to slow me. And it's like Lauren said, she says, we try to slow you down, but we never tell you no. And then they don't. They don't tell me no. They work with me, and it's like, what did you do? Well, this is what I did, and this is that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They go away mumbling.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
but they're always there. They're always there. So yeah, I have a real hard time with that story.
So I interviewed a guy, and I haven't published it yet. I'll be publishing the interview down the road a little bit. He's from Rowlett. I grew up with him.
Okay.
His name's Chad Caden. He was an Air Force guy. I don't know if you know him. He was, I don't remember what his rank was, but he was pretty high up, pretty high ranking. And he is an amputee, I think just one leg. But he had a randomly his leg felt like it was on fire. They couldn't understand what happened. He just had some kind of nerve damage, and they had to take it off. And he's done he wrestles jujitsu and does running and swimming and all kinds of sports and stuff. And they told him that he was going to have to leave active duty. And he says, if I can still pass all the PT tests, will you leave me on? And they said, well, you can't do that. And he said, what if I can? And he did. So he stayed in his position for quite a while.
More and more.
And so, and I mean, he's retired from the Air Force now, and he serves as a contractor doing work with them. But great interview. We'll have that coming up soon on Manlyhood, but I'll make sure to send that to you because great guy. And then there's a gal that's a friend, Emily, from Port Allegheny, and he kind of mentored when she lost her leg. He mentors her actually, and just kind of encourages her, and just because she's again hometown girl, so he's been able to encourage her and kind of walk her through that process. So. But I just really appreciated that conversation with him, just because, it's not something that I'm familiar with or have ever had to deal with. But watching you walk through that journey, which I love, you know what I mean? You've been like, I'm not letting this slow me down, and I've loved being able to watch the way that you've. Like the moniker we use all the time is fight like hell, and watching you fight like hell through it has been awesome.
I don't know if I want to say fight like hell. It's just my mindset, and I told you this before, came from when I was first diagnosed with leukemia. Mm-hmm. At the time, it was almost a death sentence. It's 3 years, you're out of here. I had a choice that was to either lay down and let them throw dirt in my face, or to put one foot in front of the other. So I don't see myself, people say, oh, you're such an inspiration. No, I'm not. I'm just a normal guy. Honestly. I wished I had the courage to do this before on my own, but I never did. I couldn't bring myself to that. Finally, my body says, hey, you don't do this, I'm going to kill you. So that's how those happen. But
I think that's why it's an inspiration, though, is because you are a normal guy. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's because I know you, and I've known you for a long time, and I know that you're saying, here I am faced with something that I never thought I'd have to face. And instead of giving up and saying, I'm not going to put one foot in front of the other, you got up and said, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other.
So I've always believed it, is keep moving forward. I don't care whether it's micro centimeter or it is yards.
Yeah.
But keep moving forward and always look for that teeny tiny spot of light.
Yeah.
It's there. Guaranteed. It is. You just gotta look for it. So yeah.
So the moral of the story, though, is if you're going camping, don't burn your thumb on a skillet.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. No, the moral of the story is pay attention. That's what the first aid kit's for. Use one.
So let's talk about that, because I know you're a camping expert. what would you do if you burnt your thumb? Like, what would the proper thing to do? Like, how would you treat that in the
Cool
woods?
it down first. Depends on how bad you burn. If it's just a blister, let the blister. Don't pop it, anything like that.
Right.
It makes me wonder how bad he burned it. As I said, there's a lot of stuff in this story that's missing.
Right.
You know, if you got a blister, you dress it, leave it alone. Okay, don't pop it because it's, first of all, it's going to hurt you more. Plus, the other thing, as soon as you pop it, that is a road for infection. It's going to get in there no matter what you do. It's going to get you.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So yeah, it's about all you can do. Honestly, if you're in the backcountry, if you get to your doc says, well, he says, you know, that's turning the wrong color or something like that. We got to pop it, and, you know, express it, drain it, you know, flush it really good. Odds are you're going to make it past this. But like I said, with all of a sudden going from here to there to nothing, it's like there's parts here that they are not publishing or that we are not getting out of this. So that's where it would be a great thing to be able to talk to this guy and say, hey, this is the story they wrote about you, dude. Is this the truth?
Yeah. And it seemed like it progressed pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Sepsis does. It's not a slow moving thing. You get an infection inside your bloodstream, boy, you better be on top of it. RFN, or you're going to be DRT, dead right there.
Well, it did say in that article that he had taken it from the fire over to like a table. So he did say there was some walking distance, and he said he ignored it.
Things like that, then yeah, you've got a place. You know, if all you did was, you know, okay, fine, I just, you know, ran
He said he just shook it off.
Water, and then I just, you know, put a rag around it. Well, you deserve what you get.
Well, if he's like my mother, you know, my mother has like a freakish pain tolerance. I mean, she's in the hospital right now. She fell on the ice on Saturday and broke her femur, and like severe break 4 places right above the knee.
Oh.
And
osteoporosis pain?
No, she walks 2 miles a day, so she's in like really good bone health.
Okay.
Like they did a bone density recently, and she's in really good bone health. But when she slipped on the ice, her leg like twisted and like flung back.
Oh.
So it actually broke. She thinks it broke on the fling because of the way it twisted and it like the inertia of it, not on the fall, but on the fling, which might sound like a bone health issue, but her bones are really healthy.
I'm just curious. That's all.
But she never felt any pain. She didn't feel pain when it snapped. She didn't feel pain when she fell. She didn't feel pain. They kept coming in to ask her, do you need any pain meds? And she's like, I'm not hurting. What's your pain scale? Maybe a 3 the whole time. So, you know, I mean, if this guy's like that, maybe he didn't take it seriously because it didn't hurt.
Possibility, but like I said, we're missing a big part of this story someplace. It's just not there, and it should be if they're going to report it.
By the way, they fixed my mom's leg. They put a rod, and then they like sheathed the bone with like a plate, and they don't cast it.
She carries a card now when she flies.
Yeah, possibly. They did say that it shouldn't set off metal detectors because of the titanium alloy they used, but she will carry a card just in case.
I shut off metal detectors we found.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, they said that like I was amazed that they don't cast it. They don't cast it. Like we were all worried that she was gonna have a cast that went all the way up to her.
Did they put like a fiberglass splint to keep it in alignment? Or?
No, it's all on the inside. It's all they just do it so differently now. So, but so she's still in the hospital though. She's gonna have probably a few weeks of rehab. So,
yeah, probably.
But so we're kind of
rehab at.
So she's in Williamsport right now.
Okay.
And they were trying to figure out. They were talking sending her to Countersport because it's closer to home, but they don't have beds, so we're not sure where she'll end up. So we're praying that she might just stay in Williamsport because the rehab would be shorter there because they have a better rehab. But the problem is she's a million miles away from everybody. Right. So we'll figure that out. Not sure.
Pretty tough old broad, is she?
Yeah. So it was that's a good segue because my mom always used to say that every time you try talk about something. What's that have to do with the price of eggs in China? You know, and it's actually not about the price of eggs in China. It's about the price of eggs in America. There was an article that said there was 100,000 eggs stolen. It was in USA Today, and it was in Pennsylvania, so it's not far. I mean, Pennsylvania's a massive state, but you know, geographically compared to the rest of the world, that's not far from here. Somebody has stolen about 100,000 eggs from a distribution trailer in South Central Pennsylvania, so near Philly. Well, actually, if it's near Philly, that's no surprise. South Central PA. As rising egg prices and shortages continue to worry U.S. consumers, the eggs were taken from the trailer at Pete and Jerry's Organics in Antrim Township at 8:40 on Saturday, according to the state police. Police estimate their value at $40,000. We take this matter seriously and are committed to resolving it as quickly as possible. I imagine you got to resolve that pretty quickly because
last week I was over at Walmart. I opened the doors. Come here, I got some dozen eggs.
They are, yeah, really.
Yeah.
Do you realize how much they cost? Hey, I know you like eggs, but you can't have them. Do you realize how much eggs cost right now?
We're lucky we get ours from a private lady.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well,
hell of a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper.
I am like, this is, so we used to have chickens, and so we raised, you know, I miss having them right now because it's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So, and that whole thing is there's another story here about that because the U.S. egg industry, they're seeing record chicken deaths from a bird flu outbreak. Mm-hmm. Wow. So,
yep.
But that's suspicious.
What
so
is?
The whole bird flu outbreak
comes and goes every now and then, just like most things. It has a cycle.
So they recently, so the USDA recently ordered, like, let me see, how many did they had a bunch of them killed. 20 million egg laying chickens. It said 20 million egg laying chickens in the U.S. died last year, is what they said. 20 million. But they say they died because of bird flu. But that doesn't mean they had bird flu. So I was trying to like track down that story because that's what the USA Today article says, right? Mm-hmm. So then you start tracking it down. This is where it gets weird. So the USDA ordered 20 million chickens to be killed because of some connection to bird flu. So maybe the farmer tested positive for bird flu.
Trying to slow down the spread.
Maybe there was bird flu nearby. Or maybe somebody just wanted to jack up the price of eggs.
Usually it's chronic wasting disease.
So
CWD is going through here.
So look, the person that would have been responsible for this, that would have been in charge of this. Okay, this is just because this is Josh today. I was in full on conspiracy theory mode. You'll have to forgive me because I saw the theft, right? Because that's a lot of eggs, and I'm thinking. And it just got me all jacked up. And I'm like, why are eggs so stinking expensive right now? And so I'm thinking, okay, you remember during COVID, right? When because that was the last time that the price of eggs went up. And you remember why they went up? Anybody remember why the price of eggs went up during COVID? Because all of the chicken houses started catching on fire all over the country, randomly. Remember that?
On fire.
Yeah, like a whole bunch of chicken houses burn up randomly.
How's that happen?
Nobody knew, and nobody's ever investigated or talked about it. They just randomly caught on fire, like all within like a few weeks of each other, like during COVID, and then the price of eggs jumped up. So, okay, anyway, the person responsible for determining which chicken, like, so there at the USDA, you have someone called an inspector general, right? This is a person who's going to say, okay, we have an outbreak, and we need to order that these chickens are going to be culled. So that lady's name is going to be Phyllis Fong. Now, I saw a post on Facebook that I'm saying I'm not going to believe what this post says because it's clearly a conspiracy theory post. So I'm not saying I believe what the post says. I'm not going to read the post. I just know that Phyllis Fong is the USDA Inspector General. So she would have been responsible of overseeing this. Now, when you read the Facebook post, it outright accused her of intentionally ordering all these chickens to be killed.
There's some pretty hard and fast rules that go with raising poultry on the scale.
Right.
That you get something like that, unfortunately, sometimes it's like mad cow disease. Your
Right.
whole herd gets killed.
Right. But
or your whole flock goes.
But this lady is the one that, when Trump fired a whole bunch of inspector generals, refused to leave and had to be escorted out by police last week. So, just interesting. That's all I'm saying.
It is. It is.
So, I'm not saying that she did it. I'm just finding it interesting.
But 20 million chickens isn't that big when you look at some of the production houses.
So, 20 million chickens would be 20 million eggs a day. How many Americans?
At least.
How many Americans are there?
What I'm saying, with the scale of production that these poultry farmers run on,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you see house after house after house after
Right.
house on some of these farms, and it's all chickens or it's
Yeah.
all turkeys.
Right.
And they've got a lot of them in there. So really, on that scale, 20 million is not many. But the egg production from 20 million birds is.
Right.
Because it's more than one egg per day. Okay. These guys are layers, and that's it. They have a useful lifetime, and they called out and either they go either into the cheap supermarkets or they go into cat food or dog food.
But just thinking about it is like, dude, because that was the whole thing regarding the election, right? Is that they tried to say, well, we voted based off the price of eggs, and like that was one of the things people said.
Yeah.
And then the price of eggs went up. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what if they made the price of eggs go up just to
I think they went up after the election. Though.
They did.
Avian flu is something that is bothersome.
But I don't know. Now then, I mean, I don't know. The whole thing just makes me scratch my head because I'm the guy that looks for a conspiracy theory everywhere.
Yeah, it is a head scratcher, but you do the same thing to cows. You do the same thing with people that raise elk in whitetail commercially.
Mm-hmm.
If they get
like CWD,
guess what? They're gone. And then that's it. You got a 5. In some cases, you got a 5-year before you can even use that land again.
Wow.
And you're not reimbursed. You're done. But yeah, there's some head scratching stuff going on. Yeah. How does this stuff start? I don't think this one came from a lab in China.
Yeah, that's true. Well, did you see during speaking of labs, did you see during the RFK hearing where they tried to call him out for the whole Lyme's disease conspiracy theory that he had said something about?
No.
Are you familiar with that conspiracy theory?
Oh no, I'm not. That one I'm not.
So, this one is interesting. So I don't know. Justin Jones was talking about it. I don't know. Do you know Justin Jones?
No.
He's a guy from Bradford too. And he lives in Pittsburgh now. He's got a podcast called the Curious Jones Podcast. I've been on his show. Great guy. He's been on mine too. But he was talking about it today and online. And even though Facebook says they're not going to be censoring people, they censored his podcast for dangerous content, or censored his post for dangerous content because he mentioned this. And when RFK was in the hearing, they called him out for having said this somewhere. So, Lyme's disease comes from getting bit by ticks. And there's a bacteria that you catch right?
Yep.
And now, historically, we know that all the way back in colonial times, they talked about getting sick in your joints after getting bit by ticks.
Mhm.
So we know that it has existed historically, at least that far back, and they have found possible evidence of the bacteria even in some ancient people, and they found it all over the world.
Mhm.
So we know that it wasn't invented in a laboratory. Like, that's important to note.
Okay.
So, and I don't think that that's what the conspiracy theory is saying. Now, fast forward. The 70s happens. And we all know the 70s was wild. That's when I was born. 70s happens. There's a cluster of, at the time they called it the Lyme arthritis cluster,
Okay.
because they didn't know what it was. And it took them a while to connect the dots. And it was primarily children, and then it started spreading to adults near Lyme, Connecticut,
Okay.
of people who started having these weird symptoms. And over time, they connected it to what they now call Lyme's disease, which was coming from that bacteria from tick bites. And it was a cluster all right along Lyme, Connecticut. And then they started tracking it, and they realized it's all up and down the East Coast. It's also near Maryland, but especially there. And now it's all over the country, but it's still high concentration in that area.
Okay.
And it's just something that it's noticed. Now, that's one thing to note. Another thing to note, and this is where the conspiracy theory kicks in. Are you guys familiar with Operation Paperclip?
No.
After World War II, the United States imported Nazi scientists that were skilled in their respective areas, gave them, diplomatic immunity for their war crimes if they served the United States. One of them was Werner von Braun, who worked on our rocketry program, helped us get to the moon.
Yep.
Right? We had several of them in many areas. One of them, and I don't remember what his name was, but one of them was particularly skilled in the area of insect-borne pathogens used as bioweapons.
Wow.
He worked in a laboratory in Maryland, Fort Detrick, I believe.
Yep.
And then he was transferred to a laboratory on Plum Island off the coast of New York, which is also near Connecticut, near Lyme, Connecticut, which is just a very interesting coincidence. There's no record of him working on ticks, but
Ticks have always been
right. I mean,
a vector.
Ticks have always been a vector, and as has that particular bacteria. We know that from history, right?
One of the things people think about is, and I'm not sure that I hook up on this one, is that because our winters aren't like they used to be, deep cold, it's not killing a lot of these
right.
predators.
Right, especially in the past 20 years or so.
It's been changing.
Yeah. Now, but in the 70s, it was still cold when those started coming up then. So the theory is, could he have, if that conspiracy theory is true, could they have been working on mutating or experimenting with the virus that existed, and could it have escaped the laboratory? And that's where those clusters, why there was a resurgence and a large resurgence in those clusters in that area.
What bothers me about these damn labs that do enhanced, work, that it's very, very hard to keep stuff.
Yeah, especially if it's as small as a virus or as small as a bug. Yeah. So, Samantha, I think you've had enough. She hears us talking about ticks, and it's concerning to her.
Well, yeah, I would understand that.
But yeah. So, but that is what the theory is, and so yeah, so RFK
so
talked.
back to RFK.
So RFK talked about that on a podcast somewhere, speculated that that's what happened, and they called him out in his confirmation hearing and said, "Do you really believe that that was created by the government?" And and he just basically just kind of refused to answer it because all of those
I'll
questions
take
were.
that as a yes. Yeah,
But-
I've watched some of these, and they're absolutely ridiculous in some parts.
But they didn't stop, confirming anybody, which is good. But I'm really a big fan of RFK. I'm going to be really interested to see what he does. I'm really going to be interested to see what happens when the files on his uncle and his father are declassified. My concern is that we're about to find out that our government isn't as good as everybody thought they were. So that'll be an interesting.
We got to be pretty naive to believe, that the CIA and company have never done anything on our our soil.
So I think that's going to be a very interesting revelation when all that comes out. We'll wait and see what happens there. I think the real question is that still happening? And if that is, then that's the real issue that we want to know about. But well, guys, we'll find out.
The 2 attempts.
Maybe we'll get to talk about that with the next episode of Fight Club. Maybe we'll have that information by then. We'll see. But I don't know. Maybe they'll come shut us down if that happens.
We just invite them in on the podcast to talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll start seeing drones outside your window. You want to talk about something there. But yeah, those were all officially licensed drones with their pilots. Or amateurs.
That whole thing, man, I have no idea what that was. There was some weird stuff, but I haven't got it all figured out.
If they'd been up here, they would have been on the ground.
So
guaranteed, because
look
at this, keep shooting the prizes.
So okay, first of all, let's talk about the drones for a second. That wasn't on our list. Okay, first of all, they were flying with FAA lights.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so China and Iran or enemy drones aren't going to be flying with red and green and white blinking lights.
What better way to make them fit in?
Well, okay, maybe, but aliens wouldn't be.
Oh, okay, all right. Boy, was that a read?
They definitely weren't aliens. Aliens aren't going to be flying with that. But if they were, okay, so maybe, but I don't know. The whole thing is bizarre. I have no idea what's happening. I don't think it's aliens, but
I don't think it's aliens. I think it's something going on with the government.
But I honestly, my opinion is because we have government drone labs, right? Drone research facilities right nearby.
We're using them in combat.
And we have a facility right there built for testing that material. Right beforehand, the Space Force released information that they were going to be testing, and Space Force and Air Force released information that they're going to be doing some testing. But that literally just escaped under the radar. Nobody paid attention to it. And then they start seeing these things. And then you also do have legitimate uses of drones that people don't know the difference when they see it. And
we used one to map our property up there.
Yeah.
When we were looking at selling it. And the guy did a beautiful job with it.
Yeah. And then you literally had somebody flying a medevac helicopter that some buffoon in New Jersey didn't know what it was, and he starts shooting at it because he doesn't know the difference between a drone and a medevac helicopter.
So will tell you right away, but
What's that?
I said the sound will tell you right away.
Not if you're a buffoon and you've been scared by all the things you're seeing on social media. And so I think that's part of the problem is that you got a little bit of a frenzy happening because it's just like the War of the World. You guys ever learn about the War of the World story?
Yeah.
Oh,
the radio.
Yeah, the radio play.
Yep.
Did you ever hear about that, Dallas?
Oh, it's a good one.
Tell Dallas about that. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. What's the date?
It was Halloween night back in
the
40s, I think.
40s. Okay. Basically, they were reading this playwright, War of the Worlds, and they had been like, "Hey, we're going to be reading a story. This is a story."
But
just
they
so
did
everyone
it like
knows.
it was a radio broadcast.
Yeah. So what they did is they get voice actors for the story that are reading it through, acting everything out, yelling, screaming, aliens coming down, this is happening, fires, boom, boom. They're acting it as if it's real. People are tuning into the radio the middle of it.
Mhm.
They didn't get the forewarning, so they're tuning into the radio, normal night, hearing all of this chaos going on, freak out. Mass hysteria, panicking, people are going nuts.
Yeah.
And they're,
They're going into the streets with guns because they think
Yep.
the aliens are coming.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Calling the police.
Suicides.
That was a
Yep.
big part of it. Then to make matters worse, there was another radio station who said, years later, he said, let's do it. But we're going to make sure to warn people. It's been so long. Everyone must have heard about
it
it.
out occasionally on
Yeah.
Halloween.
One guy had done it. And in this area, apparently not a lot of people knew that had happened in the past. They ended up rushing the radio station, storming it through, lit it on fire somehow. The guy and his crew that were there had tried to escape. Some of them got out. He ended up dying from the fire. Some people were jumping to other roofs and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
and his kids did a lot of podcasts after about it.
Yeah, H.G. Wells wrote it, and then Orson Welles, was he related to H.G. Wells?
No.
Oh, well, maybe it might have even been a stage name, but then Orson Welles produced the radio play.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Yeah, so, and it was just, it was bizarre. And it was one of those things we learned about, when you're studying communications, because it was such a phenomenon that it freaked everybody out. And interestingly enough, are you ready for this? It happened in the early days of radio.
Oh, yeah.
And some of the panic was exaggerated by the newspapers because the newspapers was trying to make radio look bad. So there was panic in the streets.
Okay.
But it wasn't as bad as they said it was because the newspapers wanted to make the radio look bad.
That makes sense.
Isn't that an interesting factor of it? I just found that out recently.
Right.
Because the newspapers were writing these articles and all these headlines saying, panic in the streets, blah, 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 blah. And some of the panic did happen. There were suicides, there were that. But they made it look 10 times worse to make radio news look like it was unbelievable so that people wouldn't listen to the radio news but rather get their stories from the newspaper. So, yeah, that's the other twist of that people didn't realize.
I had no idea about that.
Yeah. That's there was a mild panic, but I think it was fairly localized. But the newspapers reported it to make it look like it was a nationwide panic.
Yeah, it was localized because radio stations back then didn't have a real big reach.
Right.
Yeah, there was some syndication, but it wasn't as much as they made it look like in the papers. Yeah, that was I love that crazy story. It's just one of the being a radio guy. My first job was in radio, so something I've always I was 14 years old, WFRM radio in Countersport. Yeah, I don't know why they trusted me to run a radio station at 14 years old.
I got a friend that was in Bradford, now he's over in Olean, Casey Smith.
Oh yeah, I know Casey really well.
Casey a lot. I don't hear too much from him anymore though.
Yeah,
we used to get on with him a lot when Dan and I were doing the Christmas for Kids.
Yeah,
we were always on with him.
Yeah, he still does some stuff. I heard from him a little bit. Plays drums in a rock band.
Oh yeah, he's a good drummer.
Yeah, Casey's a great guy. Yeah, I love Casey.
In fact, when we were down at what's our local FM station?
WASB, WBR.
BR.
Yeah.
Don Ferdine told me I have a face for radio.
Yeah,
thank you.
When I worked at that radio station, Don would tell me that all the time. So
I don't know if I told you this or not, but while I was down in Guatemala, we actually went on their radio station and were doing worship on there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, international radio.
Very
star
cool.
right here.
Oh, Jamie.
International radio star.
I was telling you guys, my son Jamie is over in Japan right now.
Mm-hmm.
In Tokyo, he went to a museum that was dedicated to firebombing from the war, World War II, and back. And he was actually interviewed on Japanese TV, Japanese TV. But the whole thing was not against the United States. It was following the history of firebombing, including what the Japanese did to the Chinese and stuff like that. And the way they put it, this needs to be taught so that we don't do this again. Well, one of the things they have, Jamie was telling me, as you go out, it's about Ukraine and what Russia has done to Ukraine with the missiles against the civilians and stuff. But we did it in napalm.
Yeah, napalm's crazy.
Yeah.
You can make that at home.
Oh, yeah, it's easy.
We're not going to give you the recipe.
What was it?
Give you the recipe offline.
Anarchist cookbook.
Yeah, man. You can download off the internet really easy. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can make. But if you ever want to know, just ask me. I'll tell you offline.
Just please don't. We got enough things going on in this world. We don't need something like that.
Well, it's good to know how in case you ever need it. But
you seen? Do you have a subscription, Angel?
I don't have a subscription, but there's some pretty good stuff there.
Homestead.
I haven't seen it, but it looks like it. It looks really good. So Angel's a Christian TV network, right? And Homestead looks like it's like end of the world, like apocalyptic kind of thing. Yeah,
they've got some other neat stuff on.
The one that I want to see is Bonhoeffer, Bonhoeffer was like a Christian theologian in Germany, who I'm a big fan of. His work is really great. Wrote a book called The Cost of Discipleship. Excellent book. But when Hitler came to power, he also became a spy. And worked to help, work against.
Like Fox Nation's getting some good stuff on it now. They've got one for the Bible now. And they're who did it? Who did this one? Only Production. They got some pretty neat stuff on there too now, but they're kind of costly. Angel's costly too.
Yeah, I haven't checked that one out yet. But if you haven't, have you watched The Chosen yet?
No, I have not.
You need to check out The Chosen. It's basically the story of Jesus and his disciples. I tell people this. It's good Christian television, and you can watch it for free on any of the streaming services. Good Christian television. Even if you weren't a Christian, you could appreciate the television aspect of it because it's that good. It's that good. Like, it's really great. So
find that on Prime probably.
Yeah, it's on. Yeah, it's on Prime. It's on. I think it's on Hulu. It's on Netflix. It's on pretty much all of them. And it's really fun because you see Jesus. He's got a sense of humor. Like
he was a man.
Yeah.
You know who directed that?
His name is Dallas. Yeah, I think you would actually really like it. You and Kathy would really get a kick out of it. I think you'd really appreciate it because it's they tell the story. They add some liberties to the story only just because what they're doing is they're trying to tell it.
Do they cover the lost years?
No, they're just what they're trying to tell you is the story of Jesus and his disciples.
Oh, okay, so it's later. Okay,
but they're the Bible doesn't tell you everything that happened, so they're just kind of like filling in little gaps so that you can kind of see what it would have been like, right? I guess is to kind of show you what their relationship was like, if that makes sense. Okay. And so it tells it in a really neat way. Like when you watch it, you'll be like, okay, I get this. So I really highly recommend it. Like, even if you're not a Christian, if you're watching this and you're like, oh, I don't like Christian TV, you would actually like it. It's actually really good. So, but cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Dallas Jenkins is a phenomenal director too. So,
he did really good.
Yeah, phenomenal. Oh, well, guys, anything you want to leave our listeners with today while we're wrapping up?
Don't ever say can't. Take it out of your vocabulary.
Just be a chill guy.
There you go. Your turn.
Oh man.
Okay.
I got nothing right this second.
That's all right.
Nothing.
That's all right. We talked about all kinds of crazy stuff today.
Some good points.
Yes, we did.
That's what I love about Fight Club, because it's just a random discussion of guys just sitting around shooting the bull.
Yeah.
And we have lots of good nuggets in there too.
With no mind altering substances in view.
Right. Well, other than a little bit of caffeine.
Yeah, caffeine.
But yeah, no, I really appreciate you guys. I feel like I always learn a lot hanging out with all you guys and have a good time, and looking forward to next month. So, well, thank you guys for listening to Fight Club, and look forward to catching you guys next month. We got more podcast episodes coming on manlyhood too. So if you guys are watching, make sure you share this, subscribe, like, comment, share, all the fun stuff, and we'll see you guys soon.